What's going on, everybody? John Eric Poli here with My MMA News, and today I'm joined by Trevor Peek. Trevor, of course, fighting Alex Reyes at UFC Vegas 70. That fight date, February 25th. Trevor, nice to see you again, man. How you doing?
Doing good, John. How you been making it, man?
Man, I can't complain. It's been a busy few months, but I can't complain. I'm sure you've been busy as well as you prepare for this first fight here. Let's get started with that right there, right? So, UFC debut. We've been doing this, right? Doing these interviews since actually before the Contender Series. We spoke before the Contender Series. We spoke right after you got the contract. And I remember asking you when you got the contract, I said, has it all sunk in that you're a UFC fighter? Well, even I didn't even think about it. Like, did it sink in then? Did it sink in now? I mean, we are talking right now, just a few literally days away until fight night here.
Yeah, it's sunk in a little bit. I mean, it's. I still get, it's crazy. I still get mind blown away by, I'll go out to places and just I'm getting recognized about everywhere I go now, and it's really cool, man. But yeah, it's sunk in quite a bit.
I said, what's that feeling like for you too? Like when you go out and people are like, hey, you're in the UFC, and they want to talk to you, get a picture, autograph, the whole 9 yards there. What's that feeling been like for you?
Oh man, it's just it blows my mind. I mean, really, man, it's crazy how I used to be viewed at times, you know what I mean? And then now I go out in places and, little kids run up to me wanting me to like give them a hug or something like that. Or, adults coming up to me and telling me, their stories and, maybe how I've helped that my story might have helped them and stuff. So it's just really cool, man. It's definitely humbling. It's a humbling experience, to be have the support that I have now and to be able to go to these places and be recognized. It's just a blessing, man.
Yeah, definitely a lot of good comes out of having that UFC platform there. In terms of this first fight, a lot of excitement, I'm sure. How about nerves, though? I know before the Contender Series, there were some nerves. Do you feel any nerves for this one, or will that be later on, maybe during fight week?
Right now I ain't got any nerves, and I'm hoping not to have any. Whenever I get there, as long as everything checks out, I believe I'll be good to go. But that's one of them things. I guess sometimes you just don't know until the day of. Like I felt like a straight killer leading up to the Contender Series fight, and then the day of, I just was in my head about some things, and it just my nerves kind of took over, especially pretty much that whole first round.
Yeah, and I was going to say, now, with everything that happened with that, I know at least for this fight here, one good thing, it is in the UFC Apex. Contender Series was in the Apex. So it kind of at least kind of was like, almost like chapter one, I guess you could say, of your career. It's not like somebody that's coming in from an outside of a promotion that never had anything to deal with the UFC, never saw what the Apex looked like, kind of being thrown to the wolves. You at least have a little bit of experience with dealing with that. Do you think a lot of that might help overcome maybe some of those weird nerves that you said that you felt maybe right before your Contender Series fight?
Yes, sir. I think it'll definitely help me. Like I think I've even told you this, like in recent interviews, like I'm used to having so many people there, chanting my name, and I usually like feed off of that crowd energy. I was a little upset that or discouraged that it wasn't like that it was at the Apex because I'm just man, I hadn't fought in front of my crowd since August of last year, so I'm missing my crowd pretty good, but getting there and going and experiencing that Contender Series fight and not having my crowd with me then, and getting through the fight and overcoming some adversity. I definitely think it'll be. I'll have that in my back pocket, and I think it'll attribute to me. Being confident, and not having so many nerves this time.
And I know this is something that we've talked about in the past, and you actually briefly mentioned it in one of your answers earlier. You had a very emotional story that you told when you were on the Contender Series that really hit home with a lot of people. And just from my years now of experience of doing these interviews, I know that there are a lot of people that do follow the Contender Series, but there is a lot of people that don't see a lot of that, and they're just seeing you for the first time when you're making your UFC debut or when you get into the UFC and the story gets shared around a lot more. For the people out there that haven't heard the story, Go ahead and explain it again. I want you to explain because you do a lot better than me trying to go through it. You had a lot of problems with addiction, and you had a criminal record, and you were able to overcome all of that. So just go ahead and tell the fans a little bit about your background, how you were able to overcome a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, man, I was just a lost boy. I mean, really, I didn't have just didn't really have much belief in myself, for the most part. I had times where I did believe if I could get it together that I could make it to the UFC. But yeah, I struggled so much with, staying in trouble. I mean, my arrest record started when I was as young as 15 years old and, lasted for several years. I've been arrested, I mean, more times than I can count on both of my hands. I mean, just so many car accidents, just wild, wild stories, man. And honestly, I really didn't think I'd make it, to 21. And then here I am, 28 years old, and I was involved in a real bad vehicular accident back in 2017, and after that incident, man, I started really wanting to figure out who God was, and I'd already kind of like a month or two prior to that car accident, I'd already kind of like started having some experiences with God, but after I about got that lady killed and my buddy killed in that car accident, I was like, I've got to do something different. So I started, being more consistent, going to church, and I kept myself on like getting drug tested. Like I kept myself on voluntary drug testing, and just took all these precautionary steps to try to beat my demons, really try to beat myself. And I owe everything I am to God, man. I mean, I've been to rehab, multiple times and stuff, and just he really saved me and delivered me from a rough life. And I've chased after other things at times, and kind of lost focus on him. And every time I've ever done that, man, my life is just it's been a catastrophe. So to anybody out there that is struggling with some sort of vice or something, just give your problems to God. You got to. I wished I would have. I wished I would have come to know him sooner, and I wished I'd never strayed off course at times. I wished I'd have just always known God. But I've got a good story now, man. I can help people and stuff, and be able to relate to folks. So it's all worked out the way it was supposed to. But definitely living the lifestyle like I lived, it'll haunt you at times. I guess I kind of contaminated a lot of things. There's a lot of they're about anywhere back home. I can't ride down the road and just look around and be like, oh man, I was real messed up there one time and just got a crazy story. And I just really contaminated a lot of stuff in my life with drugs and alcohol and things of that nature. But yeah, man, God found me, and ever since He found me, man, it's been a lot better.
And as you were talking about that, it's funny. I just all of a sudden flashed to. I've been reading this book. I'm almost done with it. I have about a chapter or two left. It's called The Power of Positive Thinking, and the book, it relates a lot to the Christian religion. And I was raised Catholic, so I mean, I typically try when I do these. I don't usually talk about my religious beliefs, but for me to read this book, it kind of really, I didn't mind whenever they tied things to religion. But the one chapter in it, which I found very interesting, it talked about a guy who he was running a business and things were going bad. His business was tanking. He thought he was going to lose it. He went into his office. He had a rope. He was getting ready to hang himself. At the last minute, he breaks down and he's crying, and he really didn't want to have to go through and commit suicide. And what he essentially did was almost like you were saying, he just put his problems that he was having into the hands of God and just said, whatever you do with this business, I'm just going to follow suit with it. If I lose it, I lose it. But he literally just put all of his faith into God that things would work itself out. And he ended up having a very successful business. I'm sure you could probably relate to similar stuff like that sometimes having that faith and that type of power like that, it really can go a long way with getting things turned around.
Yes, sir. It makes all the difference in the world, man.
Yeah, and it's something that, how you were able to turn yourself around like that. And again, kudos to you for doing that. It's a great story, and I'm sure you're going to be sharing it around as you have this platform now in the UFC. But let's talk now more about this upcoming fight. That's why everybody's tuning in to watch this interview. They want to hear about this first fight. Let's talk training camp right now. Obviously, putting the final touches on it as we're speaking right now. How's camp been?
Man, camp's been it's been great. I mean, I'm still living at the gym at Agogi Combatives, and I'm just over the moon blessed with good teammates, good coaches. We're really a Christian based gym, man, and got a lot of good leadership in there, and just it's a real good family environment, and everybody just I just love it there, man. And I'm still getting to work with the guy I started out striking with, Jeff Powell. He comes over, does private lessons with me, watches me spar, coaches me we got a cage there, and he coaches me outside the cage and try to get as much of a feel for the fight as we can. But yeah, camp's going good, man. Just trying to wind it up here and try to stay injury free and everything. This last little bit that seems like towards the end of camps, man, that you get so much wear and tear on your body, you're prone to injuries. So we're just trying to keep turning the motor on and off and keep the cardio up.
All right, let's talk about your opponent now here a little bit. I was just curious as to how much you know about him. I did speak with him recently as well, and he has a very emotional story too because he's been out for 6 years. He had some injuries that he didn't know he's ever gonna be able to walk again. So I mean, this is really going to be a fight for the fans. Or if you're not a fan of emotions, I would suggest, or if you are a fan of emotions, even better. If you're a fan of emotions, you're gonna want to tune into this one. That's for sure. But just what have you seen out of him? If you have been able to see anything, it's been so long since he's last fought. Just what do you really know about him?
I know he's really well rounded, and I think he's more of a. I think at the end of the day, he prefers ground and pound or submissions, but I mean, he's definitely not afraid to stand on the feet and bang. As far as film goes on him and stuff, man, it has been so long since he's fought, and we've got recent film on him, but he did some things so well whenever he was active that I feel like it's going to be hard for him to, just abandon them completely. I think, ring rust is a thing, you know, maybe not for every single individual, but for the most part, I feel like it affects everybody a little bit. Just some people's better at masking it than others. And I feel like it being this long, I'm expecting him to have, some nerves there and ring rust and spit. And if you got nerves there, man, you're going to go back to your instincts. So I'm sure what film I have seen on him. I'm sure the things that he does really well in them films. I'm sure I can pretty well bank on him using that. And as far as the story goes, man, like I've read up on him and stuff. I've seen that he had a really good comeback story, and I got a soft spot for people in comeback stories, man. And but it's one of them things like he signs the dotted line the same way I do, man. You know what I mean? We've all got trials and tribulations and hardships that we've all had to endure. And at the end of the day, I don't really guess I care about your story when that cage door closes. I've got a job to do, and I'll do my best to do it.
Yeah, man, once the dotted line gets signed there, it's just going to be business as usual. And speaking of signing dotted lines, I know you're very young in your UFC career here, but as things progress here, do you have any sort of goals? Like one of the things I thought would be really cool with your story would be is to actually have a UFC event somewhere down in Alabama or somewhere close down there, because as far as I know, I don't think the UFC's ever traveled down there, have they?
I think they had one in Dothan, Alabama, a very, very, very long time ago. But then the commission here was hard to deal with. But yeah, as far as dreams and goals with the UFC, man, I would really, really like to fight on either a Nashville or an Atlanta card. I know they haven't been back there since like 2018, but like if I could just pick like the ultimate dream, it would probably be like fighting for the lightweight title in Nashville. I think that'd be just so cool, man. And hopefully one of these days, if the stars line, man, maybe it'll happen. But just getting in an arena in general, I'm just ready to get in an arena. that was always one of the biggest things about the dream was standing in that cage, and just soaking in that crowd, man. I want to experience that, and I'm ready to experience that. So I'm just going to go here. I'm going to go to the Apex on the 25th, and I'm going to put on so much of a show that, Dana won't have a choice but to put me in front of a crowd.
All right, man. I appreciate all the time as always. It's been great talking to you once again and following along with the story. And I'm looking forward to doing many more of these here in the future. I know this is only fight one. There's gonna be a lot more fights down the road for you here. As always, man, appreciate it. Last thing before you head out though, social media so people know where to follow you at. You have any management or sponsorships or coaches, teammates, anybody like that that you got to shout out or give plugs to? Take it away.
Yeah, I just want to thank all of my coaches and teammates at Agogi Combatives and Jeff Powell for, sharpening up my skills on the feet. Want to thank all. I got a list of sponsors here for this fight. If you'll care, I'm gonna read them off real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
C&M Pest Management, Section Builders Market, Wilson's Lawn Care, Citizens Finance, Johnson's Service Incorporated, Weiss Lake Tackle and Outdoors, Shaw Painting, Sevenfold Roofing, Lamone's Mexican Restaurant, Wright Motor Company, Sewing and Design at Pamela's, Barnett Construction, Inked Up Tattoo Parlor, TNT Paving, and Nuga Dentistry. And I just want to, thank everybody for that loves and supports me, man. It really is just it's hard to grasp sometimes. I've got all kinds of restaurants. I mean, here in the tri-state area that's going to be having watch parties. I don't even know how many, man. Probably at least 10 restaurants that's going to be having watch parties, and just my family and friends that's stuck it out with me through the hard years, and even new people that's come in my life that's been blessings. I mean, I just thank everybody, and I want to thank my manager Steve Swedish over at Ruby Sports and Entertainment for making my life so much easier. I mean, the guy is just I'm made such a good decision with going with him, man. He has just been a huge blessing in my life. And then I want to thank, my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, because I mean, without him, nothing that I've got going on is even possible. And I just everything I am and everything I hope to be, I owe it to him. So, and thank you, John, for having me on, man. I always enjoy it.